prison with this kind of record. And you sent him to a female prison, didn't you? You said that the Board of Prisons was trying to violate Ms. Shelby, former Mr. McLean's constitutional rights, didn't you?
I issued a report and recommendation to the district judge recommending that the district judge transfer the petitioner to a women's facility. The district judge adopted that recommendation.
You said the Board of Prisons was trying to violate Ms. Shelby's, Mr. McLean's constitutional rights, didn't you?
So I based my decision on the facts that were presented to me in the record.
But it wasn't that your ruling?
I recommended finding that under Estelle versus Gamble.
Why won't you admit that was your ruling? Are you ashamed of it today?
I'm not. I'm answering the question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Judge Dixon, can you tell me about the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution?
It's me, Senator Kennedy. Judge Valen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see that far. Okay. I just got new glasses. Judge down here, and then we'll come this way.
Judge Court. Senator, I had the same issue when I walked into the room. I thought that it would be difficult to see my last name, so no need to apologize.
Okay.
So, and I apologize. Your question is the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution. It requires that the states give full faith and credit to judgments of other states.
Okay, very good. Judge Metburn, I was looking at your resume. You went to Brown University, is that right?
I did.
And then you went to law school in California?
That's correct.
And you've worked for the Brennan Center?
I interned. I was a law student intern.
Okay. And you worked for the Center for Reproductive Law and Policy?
I was a law student intern there for 8 weeks during my 1L summer.
Okay. And you are a political activist, aren't you?
I am not. I'm a sitting United States magistrate judge.
Okay. All right. Do you remember an inmate named William McLean, also known as July Justine Shelby?
Yes, I know who you're referring to.
Okay. Mr. McLean raped a child, didn't he?
30 years ago, the petitioner in the habeas case before me.
Did he rape a child?
He pled guilty to that crime. Yes, it's abhorrent.
And then he raped he raped a little boy, right?
I believe that's correct. I believe he pled guilty to 2 acts of sexual violence.
And then he raped a 17-year-old girl, right?
Again, this case was handled by the state court in Indiana, but
I'm just asking you the facts. Don't stall on me now. Did he rape a 17-year-old girl or not after raping a 9-year-old boy?
I believe that's what he pled guilty to.
Okay, and then he went to prison, didn't he?
Yes, the petitioner was.
And then he came out and he sent child porn, basically adults raping little children, to another sex offender. And he was sent back to prison, right?
The petitioner pled guilty to
Was he sent back to prison?
Well, that case was in the federal system, so.
Was he sent back to prison?
Yes, this time to federal prison.
Thank you. And then he decided to transition, and he became a female and started going by July Justine Shelby. Is that right?
Yes.
And Ms. Shelby said, I don't want to go to a male prison. I want to go to a female prison. And the Board of Prisons said, what planet did you parachute in from? You're going to a male prison with this kind of record. And you sent him to a female prison, didn't you? You said that the Board of Prisons was trying to violate Ms. Shelby, former Mr. McLean's constitutional rights, didn't you?
I issued a report and recommendation to the district judge recommending that the district judge transfer the petitioner to a women's facility. The district judge adopted that recommendation.
The Board of Prisons was trying to violate Ms. Shelby's, Mr. McLean's constitutional rights, didn't you?
So I based my decision on the facts that were presented to me in the record.
But it wasn't that your ruling?
I recommended finding that under Estelle versus Gamble.
Why won't you admit that was your ruling? Are you ashamed of it today?
I'm not. I'm answering the question. I applied Estelle versus Gamble.
Was that your ruling?
My recommendation was that the petitioner's serious medical needs were being denied by keeping her in a men's facility.
A violation of the 8th Amendment, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And how big was Ms. Shelby, Mr. McLean?
I don't have a specific recollection. Your colleague just suggested that she was more than 6 feet tall.
And you told the Board of Prisons, well, she'll be okay. The other women in the female prison will be okay because it's only hypothetical that Ms. Shelby, Mr. McLean would reoffend again after he's already raped a 90-year-old boy and a 17-year-old girl and has been sending child porn through the mail. You said there's no chance he'll reoffend again. Did you say that?
Senator Kennedy, I based my decision on the record.
But am I
evidence.
right? Did you conclude that?
I don't have a specific recollection of that. I did recommend that after finding a constitutional violation.
What were you thinking in saying it's only hypothetical that she would reoffend?
The facts of the case were that the petitioner had last engaged in a contact offense 30 years ago. The petitioner had not engaged in any contact offense. In addition, the medical evidence made clear that for the last 5 years, the petitioner was sober and hormonally entirely a female, and there was no evidence.
Board of Prisons didn't agree with you. I'm not going to run out of time here. You're really a political activist, aren't you?
I'm not, sir.
But your record demonstrates otherwise.
I disagree. I apply the law to the facts and come to a fair decision. All of my decisions that have been appealed, particularly this one, the district judge adopted my report and recommendation in full, and the government did not move for a stay of the decision.
It was one of those exchanges that stops time, the kind where civility teeters on the edge of confrontation, where the air grows thick with disbelief. Senator John Kennedy leaned forward, his Louisiana drawl steady but sharp, his words cutting through the silence. "You sent him to a female prison, didn't you?" Across from him sat Judge Nancy Noor, calm, deliberate, her tone even as she tried to explain the law, the precedent, the case record, the constitutional clause that had guided her hand. But the senator wasn't asking for a lecture in jurisprudence. He was asking for something deeper, an answer to the question that has divided the conscience of a nation. Where does justice end and ideology begin? The story at the center of the hearing sounded almost impossible to believe. A convicted child rapist, a man who had once preyed on a 9-year-old boy and later a 17-year-old girl, later found guilty of sending child pornography while on release. After years behind bars, he transitioned and began identifying as a woman, July Justine Shelby. When the Bureau of Prisons said no, when it decided that this record, this history, this violence could not be placed in a women's facility, Judge Noor recommended otherwise. She found, under the Eighth Amendment, that keeping the prisoner in a men's prison amounted to a denial of serious medical needs. In her eyes, it was not about ideology. It was about constitutional duty, the right to medical care, to dignity, to equal protection under law. But to Senator Kennedy, that reasoning was unthinkable. His disbelief built like thunder in his voice. "He raped a 9-year-old boy," he said. "He raped a 17-year-old girl. He sent child pornography. And you sent him to a women's prison." For a moment, the hearing became less a legal interrogation than a moral reckoning. Kennedy wasn't just questioning a nominee, he was questioning the soul of American justice. What are we protecting, he seemed to ask, and who pays the price for our compassion? Judge Noor, composed, tried to explain. She said the decision was guided by the facts, that the petitioner's last contact offense had been decades ago, that the medical record showed years of sobriety, that hormonal treatment had altered physiology. To her, it was evidence of rehabilitation, of transformation. But to Kennedy, it sounded like abstraction, the cold detachment of law shielding itself from consequence. The tension between them crystallized the fault line running through modern America, the conflict between mercy and accountability, between evolving identity and enduring responsibility. One side saw a person whose rights remained intact regardless of the horror of past crimes. The other saw the potential for injustice multiplied, a risk forced upon women who would never be asked, never warned, simply told to share their safety in the name of inclusion. As Kennedy pressed, "Are you ashamed of it?" The judge's restraint held, though her answers grew thinner under the weight of accusation. She spoke of precedent. Estelle versus Gamble, the case that established prisoners' rights to medical care under the Eighth Amendment. She said she applied the law. She said her recommendation was adopted by a higher court. But for Kennedy, the law itself seemed to be on trial. "What were you thinking," he demanded, "when you said it's only hypothetical that this person would reoffend?" The phrase hung in the air, heavy with irony. Because what the senator was really asking, what millions watching would silently ask, was this: at what point does compassion become recklessness? At what point does justice forget the victims? The scene felt less like a hearing and more like an indictment of a larger idea, that moral clarity has been traded for moral confusion, that the institutions sworn to protect the vulnerable have begun to protect their own righteousness instead. When Kennedy called the judge a political activist, she denied it with quiet firmness. "I am not," she said. "I apply the law to the facts." It was the language of the courtroom, precise, measured, safe. But outside the marble walls of Washington, the world hearing those words might wonder, what if the law itself, as written and interpreted, no longer sees the full picture of harm? This hearing was not simply about a single case. It was about a question echoing through courtrooms, prisons, and legislative halls. Does equality mean sameness? And when equality collides with safety, who gets protected first? To some, Judge Noor's decision embodied empathy, the refusal to let even the most reviled prisoner be stripped of basic rights. To others, it exposed the moral blind spot of a judiciary too consumed by symbolism to confront the reality of violence. In the flicker of that Senate spotlight, the tension between law and justice became visible. Two ideals, once intertwined, now pulling apart. Kennedy's disbelief, the judge's composure, both were reflections of a country arguing not just about crime, gender, or rights, but about the very architecture of fairness. When the gavel finally struck, the sound was less closure than echo, the reminder that the question remains unanswered. The score swells, low brass, slow strings. The narrator's voice lowers to a final cadence. In this hearing, America saw its paradox, a system of law built to defend liberty, now struggling to define what liberty even means. Compassion is essential, but compassion without boundaries can become cruelty in disguise. When power forgets the victims, justice becomes theater. When ideology outruns accountability, equality loses its moral weight. And so the question lingers, not in the chamber, but in every courtroom and community across this nation. What kind of mercy preserves justice, and what kind destroys it? A beat of silence. This is liberal freedom. Because truth, however uncomfortable, must still be told. Subscribe, share, and support our work as we continue to expose the moments where policy and morality collide and power forgets the people it swore to protect. For every voice silenced, for every truth buried beneath politics. This is liberal freedom.